Got some howler monkeys here. I'm gonna be sharing this video with howler monkeys. So I apologize if they're loud. I don't know how the audio is gonna turn out with them howling in the background, but it is what it is. This is jungle living. So episode 30. We made it. Honestly, I didn't even think I was gonna be able to do this. After I think it was episode 3, I was experiencing problems with the GoPro and with my laptop, and then the internet connection. Oh my god, it would take the whole night to upload videos. And I started thinking, oh boy, I think I bit off more than I can chew here. This isn't gonna happen. But I kept doing it. I kept grinding it out and working around the technology issues that I was facing, and I reminded myself, no, I set this goal and I feel like it's for a purpose. I have to achieve it. And it got easier and easier. I kept believing that it's going to be possible, and here we are, episode 30. I'm so happy that you guys came along for the ride, and I hope you've enjoyed the journey. I said in a previous video, we are gonna keep sharing. So the channel's not ending after this 30 video challenge. We're gonna keep going. It's just not gonna be as frequent. So I decided, like, look at this, just look at this first. The water is so glassy, so calm right now. This is just so epic. Just finished my swimming practice. So I decided I'm gonna finish this series and speak a little bit about why I came to Costa Rica. How did I end up here? How did my journey take me here? So where do I start? My career before coming here was actually a truck driver. I started off as a long-haul trucker going through the US and some of Canada, and then I became more local, working like I was hauling fuel even at one point, and then I guess you could say the peak of my career was working in my hometown hauling ore for the mines, nickel and copper ore. And I was doing this was sure to be my career. I was making really good money. I was home every night, so it was a good job. But I started to have these feelings and have these thoughts like, what am I doing here? What am I doing with my life? Is this actually what I want to be doing? And I started to listen to these thoughts, because I think it's normal to have these thoughts. Even in a relationship, I think it's normal to have these thoughts come up. Am I in the right relationship? Blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times we don't really explore that voice too much. And I guess in this instance with my job, I started listening to it, and I started to explore that voice, that inner voice that was coming up. And there were a lot of synchronicities happening in my life at the time. I just started to see the world very differently. My vision just started to shift completely. I also had a very deep urge to reconnect with nature. I've always been a bush kid. When I was growing up, I spent a lot of time in the forest. Our house growing up, there was forest right behind, so I would be back there all the time, winter and summer. And yeah, I loved the forest. But then as I grew older, I kind of became detached from nature, not spending as much time at all. Actually, when I was trucking, I didn't get into the forest much at all. And yeah, I just started to have this deep urge to reconnect with nature, to be in the forest, to be around trees, and to be around animals. And just so I started taking some weekends to go camping by myself, like just setting up a tent in the forest and camping. And the urge got deeper. It was like, okay, I have to. Thing was just kind of scratching the surface. The urge got much deeper. And I guess at one point I remembered when I was a child, I collected National Geographic books, magazines. And I remember flipping through and seeing Costa Rica in one of these books, and I remembered how I felt as a child when I was looking at Costa Rica, and it was like, oh, this is like a paradise, like a wonderland of nature and waterfalls and jungle and all these exotic animals and the ocean. I want to touch the ocean. I grew up in inland Canada, so I was very far from any ocean. And so it seemed like it had this allure to it that I was like, I have to go here one day. And I suddenly remembered that feeling, how I felt as a child when I was looking at these books. And it was like something clicked right there. Okay, I have to take this trip. I have to follow this childhood dream and go there. So I requested the time off from my boss. It was a 5-week trip. I don't know why I picked 5 weeks. That's just what I felt like I had to go for. And my vacation request was denied. So I told my boss I have to go. So I'm gonna have to quit my job. And he was shocked. He's like, are you serious? This is your career. Like, you know, you have a pension plan and all of this stuff. And I was like, I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me right now. And in that moment, I was so sure that I had to go that my bills meant nothing to me. My car payment, my apartment, like my rent, all of my stuff, nothing meant anything anymore. I just knew that I had to go. And I wasn't thinking about, well, if I quit my job, how am I going to pay for all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. Like it didn't cross my mind at all. The only thing that was in my mind is that I was sure I had to go. And that is the voice that I listened to. So I feel like that's the crossroads. In that moment, I could choose to follow that inspiration, or I could choose to stop myself and say, okay, no, I'm being irrational. I have a life here. I have bills. I have responsibilities. I have to maintain this, so I can't go. So those were the two, that was the crossroads, and I choose to follow my heart. I chose to follow my inspiration. And so the other stuff didn't matter, and I would deal with it when I came back. So I came here for the 5 weeks. I stayed at a farm up in the mountains in Pera Celadon, and it changed my life. I was introduced to a lifestyle I had no idea existed. It was like a semi-sustainable farm. They grew a lot of their own food, almost off-grid, but not quite. But anyways, it kind of gave me the idea of, why aren't we all living like this? I mean, I can walk out my door and pick all kinds of vegetables and go to the chicken coop for eggs and make an omelet right here from my own land. Why aren't we all doing this? This just makes sense. So I decided I wanted to explore that further. And I went back to Canada and sold all of my crap, got rid of my apartment, got rid of my car, sold my motorcycle, sold everything. I got rid of absolutely everything except for a backpack and a suitcase. And I actually came back to that farm to live for a year, to volunteer for a year. And there, after a few months, I actually met Debbie, and the rest is history. It's gonna get too long if I go into the whole story, but that's basically like a Cliff Notes version of what brought me here. So You know, when we have these childhood dreams and childhood fantasies and things like that, we grow up and we're told at one point that it's just silly childhood thinking. Like it's not rational. You need to get a job, you need to get a house and secure your future and pay into a pension and all of that. Life has to look a certain way, and everything you thought about as a child suddenly becomes just this childhood fantasy. But I don't know, I really feel like our childhood is where we're so in tune to our soul because we don't know anything else yet. We haven't been conditioned to think that things have to look a certain way. And so I feel like it's very important to revisit, maybe through a meditative practice or whatever, when you were a child, what you felt drawn to, what you felt inspired by, and look at that and see if you're actually living in alignment with that right now. And I can tell you, when I was a child, I was not thinking about ore hauling in a transport in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada for the rest of my life. Not even close. So I just realized at one point I wasn't in alignment and I had to change my life. And that radical shift is what brought me here and what is allowing me to create this magic in my life. And it was a result of a radical shift and taking a deep dive into the unknown. And I was full of love when I came here the first time on my 5-week trip. And that's what enabled me to go back to Canada and to sell my stuff and to follow this inspiration. Because I was in a space of love, I was open. So my whole life up to that point, I was kind of in a space of bitterness because I never quite felt right with what I was doing. I was working all these jobs, and I had numerous jobs. Trucking was my career, but I can tell you, I went through a crap load of different jobs and industries. It would shock you if I actually told you how many jobs that I've had in my life. It's insane. But none of them felt right. It was like I learned it, I got good at it, and then I would quit and move on. And people would often label me as being flighty and commitment phobic and things like that. And even for a while I believed it, until I was like, nah, man, it's just that I was soul searching my whole life. And also, I learned a lot of valuable skills with bouncing around different industry, and I gained a lot of insight and wisdom into how this world operates, and I feel like everything that I've done is now serving me in some way. So I'm grateful for all of it. And but in the moment, I was never in alignment. I was never happy with what I was doing. I knew that there was something else. There's something over there. I don't know if it's a dolphin or what, but I see something out there. And what happened as I grew older in that space, I became kind of bitter and kind of had a negative outlook. I had a lot of anger with my situation and I wasn't happy. And that's why I wasn't creating any magic in my life. I really believe that we need to be in a space of love, openness, and compassion, and we need to raise our vibration in order to create and to manifest these amazing things in our lives. We can't create from a space of anger and bitterness and judgment and hostility or whatever else, those low vibrational emotions. That's not where creation happens. So once I shifted my life, got myself into alignment, my vibration raised because I became more open, that's when things happened. And here I am today. sitting here on the Gulf of Dulce in Costa Rica, and there's a plane going by. I hope it's not too loud. I don't know if Costa Rica is going to be my forever home. That I cannot say. I have no idea what the future holds, and I don't look at life like that anymore anyways. I live for the moment, and that doesn't mean I don't plan things or have goals or anything like that. I do. But just like my relationship, I love in the moment and I live in the moment. And right now, Costa Rica is home. Right now, Debbie is my wife. And, you know, it could be like that for the rest of my life, or something can shift. One thing I've learned in my life is that things can shift drastically when they happen. I mean, 5 years ago, maybe 6 at this point, I think it was, I was trucking, thinking I'm in my career for the rest of my life. I'm gonna retire from this job, I'm gonna buy a house eventually, and I'm gonna be set. Now look at where I am. It was a drastic shift, and it basically just happened overnight. So if I've learned anything, it's that everything changes all the time, and the best thing we could do is just live and love in the moment and roll with these changes and just see where life takes us. It's a trip, it's a ride, and we have to enjoy it. And that's kind of my story. That's yeah. That's kind of my story. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, there's going to be more videos coming. We're going to keep sharing, and I have a lot of different ideas to edit some cool videos. So until the next time, thank you so much for following this 30-day challenge, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the ride, and yeah, peace to all of you. I love all of you. Until the next adventure, peace.